I made almost $30 million with my consulting business, and here's how I do it again: faster, simpler, and with way fewer mistakes. This is going to be part 2. In part 1, I talked about the 4 main pillars you need to get started: your personal life, the offer, marketing, and sales. In this video, I'm going to talk about the final 2 pillars that you need in order to hit those glorified $100, $200, even $500,000 months and above, which is going to be delivery and operations. I purposely made these 2 videos because delivery and operations need their own time. You see, after working with almost 3,000 businesses at this point, I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that in the information coaching consulting world, everybody is focused on marketing and sales and offers, and everybody is an expert at it. But not many people have onboarded and worked with 3,000 clients. Not many people have closed hundreds of units of clients or deals every single month. Not many people have scaled a team to 35, 40 people. And so because of that, those people don't really share what their experiences are or try to simplify how to create a streamlined delivery and operation process. And ironically enough, the funny part about delivery and operations is that after you get sales and marketing down, which you eventually will, at some point you can definitely get it down, you think that all your problems are solved, when in reality, you start to get really bogged down in delivery and operations. And what ends up happening is you become the bottleneck to the business. You start becoming a slave to the business. What you originally created to have freedom and fun, you're now having to spend all of your time working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. You start to get less and less results for your clients. People start posting bad reviews online. They start having bad experiences. You're doing refunds. And eventually the whole thing collapses on itself and you have to start back from zero again. So this is a really, really important video for you to watch, and you need to take this stuff seriously. Now, if you're watching this video as part 2 and you haven't seen part 1, it's totally fine. I'm going to link part 1 down below. You don't have to jump and watch part 1 first. You can watch part 2 and then go back to part 1 a little bit later. So let's talk about the pillar number 5, which is going to be delivery. So delivery is going to vary person to person based on what you're doing for your clients. What I have found that irregardless of what you're doing or who you're serving or what exactly people are paying you money for, there are a few key things that I wish I knew way back in the very beginning, that if I had known this, I would have made way more money with way less headache. And the first one is going to be: make sure that you're selling to the right people. You know, we've worked with a lot of people that are, let's say, at $100,000 a month, $300,000 a month, $500,000 a month, and they are doing really well. They have the marketing and sales figured out, but they're drowning in operations and delivery. And they come to me because they want me to help optimize and systemize their back-end systems. And so they want like tips and tricks. And I always tell them, like, look, we can definitely build client success teams and onboarding funnels and welcome funnels and upsell sequences and product roadmap, all of that stuff. But I tell them there's actually one thing that you can do that will make everything else easier. And anytime somebody says that, make sure you pay attention, because if you can add a little bit of leverage, then it makes your whole life way easier. So what is it? It's going to be to make sure that you're selling to the right people in the first place. So let me illustrate this with a little example I usually show my clients, okay? Let's say that your sales team is on a call with 2 different prospects, right? And let's say your goal is to get a prospect from wherever they're at on this scale to a 10, okay? So 10 means that they've achieved the transformation that they paid you money for. Let's say that you're on a phone right now with somebody who's a 2. And let's say over here you're on a phone with somebody who is a 5. If you have to get them from a 2 to a 10, or if you have to get them from a 5 to a 10, what do you think is going to be easier to do? Obviously, getting them to a 5 to a 10 is going to be way easier than getting them to a 2 to a 10, right? The 2 to a 10 could be 2 times harder, maybe even 3 times harder, because a lot of times it's harder to go from, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5 than it is from 5 to 10. And when I talk about this with my clients, they start nodding their head a little bit, because they already know that there are specific clients that when they work with these people, it's way easier to deliver results for them. And sure, we could be closing more clients if we close anybody that was at a 2 and we just said, hey, client success team, you got to do it. You got to take care of them. You got to help them take them to a 10. But remember, we're trying to make as much money with as least work as possible. So if your total addressable market, your TAM, is large enough that you can just focus on going after the 5 to 10s, then you should absolutely do it. Or you should absolutely do it to start. As you grow and scale, as you start hiring client success teams and client success directors, and you get better at systems and operations, you can actually slowly start to dial back the 5 to a 4 to a 3 to a 2 and help those people get up to 10, because now you have the systems and processes to do it. Actually, a really great example is even in our company, we recently started helping people. Previously, we only worked with people that are making 10K a month minimum. And now we started helping people that are literally just getting started. They have to be like some kind of expert, or they know what they're talking about. So we can't make them understand, let's say, for example, how to lose weight if they're trying to be a fitness coach. But if they are a fitness coach and they only have 1 or 2 clients, or they're in person, they want to go online, something like that, we're now helping them do that. But I'm doing that after 5 years and $30 million of only helping people that are from, let's say, 5 to 10, or in this example here, $10,000 a month and above, right? But now I have an incredible client success team. I have an incredible client success director, and a lot of people that watch my content are below 10K a month, and I haven't really had something where I could work with them one-on-one and help them scale their business. But the problem is, in the very beginning, people just see dollar signs, and they think, oh, let me just try to close as many people as humanly possible. That way I can try to make as much money as humanly possible. But that's very short-term sighted, because you don't know that you're going to dig yourself a grave. You're going to have to pause marketing and sales. You're going to start to get negative word of mouth in the marketplace. And next thing you know, all of your ads, your organic content, or whatever else was working before is no longer working. And you're scrambling to try to fix things. And you end up having to collapse the business and restart the offer over again. Now, you might be asking me, Ravi, how do I find the right people? How do I know who I should go after? Well, it's typically pretty easy. Go find your best clients, okay? And then in some form or the other, you need to pretty much create a database of their attributes. One of the easiest things that we found whenever we start working with clients is a lot of our clients already have some form of onboarding form. Whenever somebody pays, they fill out an onboarding form that tells them a little bit more about them, their goals, their current situation, et cetera, et cetera. So what we'll do is we'll identify a handful of clients, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100, just depends on how big this company is. And then we'll feed it inside of ChatGPT, and we'll say, great, these are our dream clients. And then I take, if you watch part 1, that one pager I talked about earlier, I say, here's the one pager, here's what we're marketing for, here's our content, top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, and then here's our dream clients. First of all, how do we get more of the dream clients, and what do we need to adjust in the one pager? So for example, it might say something like, we'll stop talking about these beginner things if you're going after advanced people. And then the other thing is we say, what are the exact qualities that all of these 10, 20, 30, 50 people have in common, or the majority of them have these qualities in common, and we can make these essentially what is the bare minimum of who we're willing to close. You're essentially looking for what are the attributes that get somebody to a 5. So for us back then, it could have been that they already were making $10,000 a month. Another example for some of my clients that we've done in the past is they already have a sales team. So they're not just a solo person selling on their own. Another example we've done for our clients in the past is that they go to the gym at least once a month, because if you never go to the gym, trying to go to the gym is a little intimidating. But if you go every single day, you probably don't need this person's help. So we need somebody that's going to the gym about 1 time a month to be able to help them in this offer that we created, right? Another example could be a net worth. I have another client in the financial services industries, and it had to be a certain net worth that you have liquid after taxes, right? So these are all important things, because you know that, okay, if I get this person, then I know that we'll have an incredible delivery for them. They'll stay longer, they'll refer people, they'll ascend, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously the big fear here is I'm not going to get enough clients. This is so specific, which could be the case. If you're going layer deep, and you're like, okay, I only work with men in Atlanta, Georgia, who are chiropractors and wear blue shirts on Tuesday, then yeah, you're going to have a really, really narrow audience. But you may still be surprised that even at the 5 level here, there are still hundreds of thousands of people that fall inside of this avatar here. And so it's just going to make your entire delivery and fulfillment process 100 times easier than if you go for the 2 people over here. And a lot of times when people say, oh, Ravi, I want to go after the 5s, but the problem is my content's not attracting them, it's because you're not connecting what this exercise we're talking about right now, this delivery process, we're identifying your ideal avatar with that one pager we talked about before. If you're doing that and you go back, then you can adjust some of your content, your ads, your call outs, your headlines, et cetera, to make sure you're calling those right people in, and you'll start to see those 5s, you'll start to see those 5s come on board. And in our company, I don't want to confuse you a little bit, but we have a calendar scoring system. So when somebody books a call, they're either a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. With a 4 being that they are the most ideal clients that we'd love to potentially work with, and a 1 is like, we should probably cancel this person off the calendar. And so whenever I open up my sales team calendar every single week to see what we're looking at or on a daily basis, our 4s are green. And so, because we green means money. If we get on a call with a 4, we're going to close them like that, right? So I know when I wake up and I look at the calendar and I see green the entire week, I know things are cranking and we're going to have a really, really great week, right? So you want to try to think of it that way. You want to get the greens on your calendars, and you can start color coordinating or figure out your own way to do it however you want to, but you need to start analyzing the type of people that are getting on your calendar and the type of people that you're delivering for, your ideal people that you should be delivering for, figure out where that mismatch is so you can go back to the marketing, make the adjustments, and then your delivery becomes 100 times easier. The second thing about delivery that I wish I knew way sooner was something that I call the handoff. And this is arguably the absolute most critical time in any client's journey or experience with you. And the handoff is whenever sales closes a deal and they are giving it over to delivery or fulfillment. Okay? And that process going from sales to delivery, this area here, is literally one of the most critical times in your client's journey. It's essentially when they're going to decide whether investing in you, spending $1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 50, $100,000 was worth it, or they should immediately ask for a refund, if they should charge back, whatever else it is, right? And what a lot of people do is they literally spend 80, 90% of their time making the sales and marketing process amazing, beautiful. Like you feel like you're being swaddled like a little baby, and the salesperson's like, oh, I'll be there every single step of the way. You send the wire, you make the credit card payment, you sign the proposal, and all of a sudden that salesperson that was texting you 6 times a day answering your questions, they've disappeared. And then you're just sent an email and you're like, well, what's going on? Like, what are my next steps? What am I supposed to do? And now you start freaking out a little bit, and you start to get that infamous buyer's remorse, right? And so even if you're able to, I'm sorry, like you were supposed to go in your email and do this thing. Even if 1, 2, 3, 4 days later, you go back and you're like, oh, it's okay, sorry about that. And you try to make it up to that client because maybe they got a little confused somewhere. Now you're already on the back foot, meaning that you're already kind of backtracking a little bit, and it's very hard to get that client to turn around again, to be a promoter inside your business, to be somebody who tells everybody about working with you and how much they love you, right? So you need to focus on this handoff here. And actually, I have a really good graphic that I show my clients, but I'll try to kind of simplify it here for you as much as possible. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but essentially, whenever a salesperson closes a deal, they fill out what we call a deals closed activity. So this is a form, and this is what we found to be the absolute best way to signify that somebody is now a paying client. A lot of people, they don't have a specific time that it's like, this is a paying client. Is it when they pay? Is it when they sign the proposal? Is it when they do the onboarding call? Like, no one's really defined it. So we found creating a form, we call it deals closed activity, and for them to fill that out, that lets the client success team know and everybody in the company know that we just closed the deal. This is a signed, sealed, delivered, money's taken, proposal signed, and they're ready to go. So we do that as soon as everything on the sales side is done, at which point it actually now transfers over to client success. And so in that deals closed activity, what's happening is this little gap here between sales and client success or fulfillments. Now sales is trying to help out the handoff on client success. So what they're going to say is they're actually going to give in that deals closed activity, expectations. They're going to talk about the problems that they're currently experiencing, desires, anything that's going to help it so that whenever the client success team takes over, that the prospect doesn't feel like they're starting from zero again. And I always love to give this example to my clients. So if anybody here has called, let's say, Chase Bank or somebody before, oh my God, I absolutely hate calling the bank. But sometimes I have to. I got to get a wire increase or whatever the reason is. And so I will call them and I explain everything to one person, like the operator or somebody else like that. And they go, oh, you know what? This account is under the business profile, so I actually got to transfer over to the business profile. So then they transfer me over to the business account. Then I tell the whole story. They go, you know what? You're actually a platinum business one, and because of that, because you're a private client, we have another department for you to speak to. I'm like, I don't want to say, no. So then they transfer me over again to another. So now I've told my story 2 times. And then it's 3 times to try to get everything done. And so I'm on the phone for an hour saying the thing over and over again, and it's a terrible experience overall. That's exactly what happens when your sales team and your client success or your fulfillment team, they don't talk to each other. The prospect feels like they're just being passed person to person, and they're on a conveyor belt. So instead, your sales team has created all of this information, extracted all this data from your prospects. And so you should take that and you should use that in a very succinct way to give to your client success team. So that way they can come on board. And when they start doing some of the things I'm going to talk about here here in a second, the client feels like, wow, this is a really smoothly run team. They know exactly what I want and they're going to help me get there. That's what you want prospects to feel like as you're becoming a client. And so one of the first things that we'll do on the client success team is we'll do a welcome call. So we submit a deals close activity, and that signals and that triggers a task to be created for our client success team to do a welcome call where they pick up the phone, they call the person, and they say, hey, Bob, welcome to Scaling with Systems. We're so excited to have you here. I saw that you spoke to insert this salesperson's rep's name here, and that you currently run a insert business here at this amount of money here, and you want to get to this amount of money here, and your biggest problem is this here. I can't wait to help you. I already have some ideas going in my mind. You're going to get an email with an onboarding form, at which point you'll fill that out. You'll be redirected to book an onboarding call, and that's where we're going to go a little bit more in depth. And I'm also going to send you an email here in a second with a Slack invite. You can join that, and that's where we're going to talk back and forth moving forward in case you have any additional questions. If for some reason you don't get that email, you have any problems, just text me back at here. This is my personal number, and I'll answer any questions that you have. How that's going to be a 2-minute call, 3-minute call max. But how much of a difference does that make in the eyes of the prospect? How much does that make it so that even later on, if something messes up, if you accidentally overcharge them, if you don't get the results as quickly as they'd hoped for, how much more likely are you to get some leeway with that, get some forgiveness with that, than you are if from the very beginning they feel like you're dropping the ball, right? So like I said, I'm not going to cover the entire handoff process here because that's something that we work with our clients on. But the point of this is that you need to be very intentional about when sales hands it off to client success so the client feels taken care of from when they decided to become a lead all the way to when they are graduating clients. The next delivery lesson that I wish I knew sooner was that less is more, okay? And less is more means that I talked about it actually in the last video, but in my early agency days, I was offering every single thing to every single client, and they didn't need every single thing. Those, the content that I was posting on their social media profiles, the websites that I was building, they were getting no views, no clicks, nothing. The only thing that mattered was the Facebook ads and the ISA team, inter-service agent team that I was using to call those leads and set them on my sales team's calendar. And so when I trimmed off everything else, I started getting more results for clients with way less work. And the clients were way happier because they weren't trying to keep track of all the things that I was supposed to do for them that was in the proposal, and they felt like they had less burden on them, even if it was a totally done for you service. And this actually also really drove the point home. Very early in my career, let's say 2 years into joining Scaling with Systems, I had really the pleasure to have Alex and Layla Hermosi over at my house in San Diego, California. We did kind of a masterminding day where they shared some stuff and I shared some stuff. And I remember pulling up my course contents of Scaling with Systems at the time. And I think at the time we had 135 modules inside of there. And I remember showing Alex and Layla like being really proud of it. And I remember them being like, yeah, that's pretty cool, but we have 8 modules inside of Gym Launch. And I remember when they said that, I was like, oh my God, like you have 8 modules? Like I thought people were paying you for the access to this course material. And they're like, no, they're paying us for trying to get the transformation the least amount of work possible. And this was before he had written $100 million offers, right? So that goes to show he was obviously using that, following his, that book is obviously real. He's using his own experience. And that was the first time I was like, oh wow, having 135 modules is probably feeling overwhelming to my prospects. Having that much content feels like, oh my God, I have to consume all this to get the value out of this program, or I have to sift through all of this stuff to be able to figure out where's the actual thing that I want. And from that point forward, any content or material that I created, I realized my job was not to try to give them every single thing possible. My job was try to curate and give them the fewest things possible they need to get the next the unlock for their business, which is actually really where we call it the critical constraint methodology. But that's actually where that came from, because I realize there's 2 things that we follow in our company: critical constraint and smaller sliver strategy. So critical constraint essentially says that at any point in any business, there are multiple constraints that are preventing you from growing. So sales, marketing, operations, fulfillment, blah, blah, blah. And then inside of those, there could be obviously even more in depth. But there's typically going to be one major constraint that's blocking everything else. And what most people do is they will solve all the constraints at the exact same time. So they'll think, oh, every constraint is important, so I need to solve it. Or they'll solve the constraints in the wrong order. So they'll focus on constraint number 4 when they really need to be focused on constraint number 1. And a lot of time it has to do with our biases. So for example, I was a very big marketing and sales guy in the very beginning. So I always thought that my clients not having as many results as I wanted, or not getting as many referrals as I wanted, or me drowning in operations and fulfillment, that would be solved with better marketing and better sales, right? So I was biased that way until I realized, oh, no, I need to work on delivery and operations, and then I can go back to marketing and sales. And so coming from that, I realized that, okay, every single client has probably one major thing that's blocking them from growing, and let me figure out if I can solve that for them with the least amount of work humanly possible. And that was a critical constraint methodology, right? And for your clients, there's probably one or three major things that if you solve them, they would pay that $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and you don't need to do the 100 different things, right? And the second thing is the smallest lever strategy, which is where whenever we actually do identify the critical constraint, instead of saying, let's try to do these 100 things possible, and you got to start posting 10 times a day and doing these things, we just ask ourselves, what is the smallest lever that we can pull, the least amount of work that this person has to do in order to get the results that they want? So a really, really great example was getting the right people in the very beginning. So what if I've done this before, but what if I came to my client and I said, hey, instead of having to build a whole client success team and do all these things over here, what if you just started saying no to these people? This little small segment of the pie chart that, let's say it's 15% of your revenue. But when we analyze it, that 15% of people, they're the ones that are causing, let's say, 80% of all of your support tickets and your issues and your problems and your feedback calls and your chargebacks and refunds, blah, blah, blah. So what if you just made 15% less revenue, but you had 80% less issues inside your business? Would you be willing to do that? And a lot of clients are willing to do that because they know that they can make up that 15% going after the right people. So that's a really great example of the smallest lever you can pull inside your business. So when you're looking at the fulfillment process in your business, you need to be figuring out, what do I have right here that's extra, that's fluff, that I originally created, and I'm 1, 2, 3, 4 years inside of my business right now, and some of this stuff isn't even applicable anymore. Some of this stuff is outdated, whatever else it is. And the more that you can trim that away, the more you can focus on just the few key things that really drive the needle forward, and then trying to be the absolute best at solving that for your clients, the easier the fulfillment process is going to be for you, the more results your clients are going to get, and thus the more referrals, testimonials, and the higher profit margins you're going to make for your business. The fourth lesson that I learned, or I wish I learned way sooner, was the ability to replicate myself. I think in the specific coaching consulting business, there seems to be like two schools of thought here. One school of thought here on the left-hand side is that it can only be you, and you're the only person that can do fulfillment. You're the only one that can do coaching calls. You're the only one that can do one-on-one calls. Everybody's paying for you. It has to be you. Or there's this thing going on right now where people say, you have to create enterprise value. You can't be involved in the process whatsoever. It's key man risk. You'll never be able to sell your business, blah, blah, blah. And the problem is that most people are missing the fact that it's probably, at least in the information coaching consulting world, it's probably going to be somewhere in between those two things. Because if it's only you, you're not having a business, you have a high-paying job. And sure, I hear a lot of people saying that they love doing it and that gives them energy. That's totally fine. But the truth is that if you ever do want to take a vacation or whatever else it is, your business is going to drop down. And a lot of times it's actually sometimes even selfish for it to only be you, because you're going to want to always make more money, because everybody always wants to make more money. And as you want to make more money, you're going to roll more clients, but you're going to start to give less and less energy to the clients that were working with you previously. And you can't tell me that's not going to happen. There is absolutely no way that that's not going to happen, because we all only have so much time every single day. On the other side of the thing, the enterprise value, I'm going to be really quite frank with you. I don't really think that information coaching consulting businesses have a lot of enterprise value. Could you work it up and make it so that it could? Absolutely. But even other businesses like plumbing businesses and HVAC businesses, already so few of those actually sell for one of a million different reasons, and those are businesses that are built to sell. So if you take an info coaching consulting business that has so many things going against it to try to build enterprise value, and then you try to force enterprise value on top of it, what you end up doing is you end up losing out in both worlds. You end up not getting enough clients and not getting enough results because you're not involved in the process as much, and you're not having any real enterprise value because you're not making enough money from not having enough clients that don't have enough results. So I think that, there's a saying, calling a spade a spade. If you just call a spade and you say, look, I know I'm probably not going to sell this business, but could you make, and once again, your mileage may vary, but I know me and my friends, could you make tens of millions of dollars after tax money profit in your bank account doing it? Absolutely. And if you can do that, then who the hell needs to sell it anyway, right? Because you could just enjoy your life while you're making that money. So that's why I'm saying that it should be somewhere in the middle. And in the very beginning, I definitely subscribe more to that only you side of things, where I was like, look, only I can do the fulfillment, only I can do the onboarding calls, the clients are paying for me, blah, 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 blah. But then I realized about 2 years in, like, okay, I'm just working a high paying job and I'm kind of being selfish and I know I want to make more money. But I know that if I take on more clients, my clients are not going to get the results that they need to get. And so I was kind of in this crossroads here. And this is when I started to really learn how to replicate myself. And just to be clear, I already had done all the replication, like having, onboarding videos and having course content, blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about that essentially replicating you as a human being into another human being. And that's really where I started to build what I consider today to be the absolute best client success team in the information coaching consulting world. And I can say that only because I've literally been working with them for 3.5 years. The one that's been with us the longest has been with us for 3 years, and the most recent hire has been with us for about a year now. And I have poured relentlessly inside of them. A lot of them were our previous clients. They all used to run their own multiple 6 or 7 figure businesses, and I brought them internally into our company here. And I had every single notion in my head. Oh, they're not going to be as smart as me. They're not going to be as talented as me. They haven't worked with as many businesses, blah, 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 blah. But it goes back to that less as more thing over here. So, okay, they've never scaled a business, let's say to $30 million. So they can't help maybe our clients scale to $30 million, but could they help our clients scale to $2 million or $3 million? Absolutely. $100,000 a month? No doubt about it. $500,000 a month? We recently had a client come to us literally at $10K a month and hit his first $1 million month. Okay. So like, and that I didn't even talk to that client one time. They were in one of our other programs. Didn't talk to that client. That was just my client success team. Right. So they can absolutely do it. And then of course, every one of those teaches them, okay, now we know how to get someone to $1 million a month. How do we get them to 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, blah, blah, blah. So what I've learned here is that it is very possible to replicate yourself, and you should do it way sooner than you think. And you do this by hiring unbelievably talented people, paying them well, and pouring into them as much as possible. So this is going to be typically in the structure of a client success team. You are going to need to pay them a decent amount of money, but the nice thing about the info coaching consulting world is that you typically have very high margins, so you can afford to pay them it. You also want to align their performance with the compensation. So if a client renews, they ascend, or they get specific results, you can pay them more money. They can build like a book of business where you're giving them a percentage of all of the clients that they're managing, all the cash that those clients are generating. You can give the percentage of that so that they stay with you longer. They can earn a 6 or a multiple 6-figure salary. They have back-end sales opportunities, so they can make even more money than that. And you're essentially going to create a system so that not only do you have them learning from working with the clients, but then you are training them on some kind of consistent basis. So I meet with my client success team regularly for 2 main reasons. Number one, they bring to me any clients that they're struggling with that they need my hand on. So instead of me working with, let's say, 250 active clients, I can work with just my 7 client success managers, and they can work with those 250 active clients, and they can just bring to me any clients that they're having issues with on an hour-long call, and I can just say, they say, I have a problem here, and then I bring it up to everybody. I say, okay, how would you guys solve this? And everybody gives them their feedback, and then I don't say this is the right thing. I say, well, this is how I would solve it, and I give them, and now they can go off to that client. That covered 5 minutes. Then the next person's 5 minutes. Then in an hour, we can do, 10, 20 clients that we're going through, and we're talking about how we would solve each one of those clients. And so everybody's learning, everybody's sharpening their skills. Those clients are getting better results, and my time is very leveraged. I'm not going inside the Slack messages and responding back to every single one of those clients. My client success team can do it, and they can fulfill on their own. The second thing that we're doing there is I'm also training them and teaching them what we're doing as a company to scale. So in my very specific scenario, we kind of have a unique situation where our clients are paying us to learn how to scale with the most cutting edge systems, technology, strategies, blah, blah, blah. And so me as the leader of the company, as the founder, I'm going through those cutting strategies and testing them out. Like, the first 2 quarters of the year, we spent a couple of $100,000 testing 2 new funnels that I then showed our clients about, some low ticket self-liquidating funnels. And so like I was the guinea pig for our clients to test it out to see if it worked. And so then I have my client success team hopping on calls with our marketing team, with our sales team, with our operations team, our billing team. And they're saying, sometimes they're just like flies on the wall, absorbing everything that's going on so that they can then go back to the clients and tell them, like, hey, this is what we're doing here to help us scale our business. So the biggest point of this is don't think that you can't replicate yourself. because I'm going to be really transparent with you. I haven't done an onboarding call for our mid-ticket offer in 2.5 years now. Yeah, I have a unbelievable client success team that takes cares of it for me. Now, I still interact with those clients and I still have ways that I work with them, but I haven't an onboarding call in 2.5 years because I knew that the onboarding call was going to take the most amount of time, energy, and effort out of my day. And so if I can train somebody else who's just as good as me and I can review those onboarding calls, then I know that it's going to be a win-win for everybody. So don't be afraid to replicate yourself in order to optimize your delivery process. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up the delivery section after this last one because it's getting kind of long, but as you can see here, like I could go on for hours more about this. It's a really important topic. But the last piece that I'll say, it's not something that I wish I knew, it's something that I'm happy I did from day one, and that was to collect wins, okay? This was something I realized very early on, the power of social proof, and I also realized that clients sometimes, you know, they for whatever reason, they don't want to be contacted for referrals, or maybe they don't send you referrals, but they have an incredible experience with you. So instead of having it so that it's like, okay, either they give me a referral or I make nothing from this client, I knew that there was some kind of middle ground where I could collect testimonials, case studies, or client wins from our clients, and I could use that to sell new clients coming in, and my clients that got the results didn't need to do any work themselves. So it was incredibly leveraged for everybody. And so from day one, I started collecting client wins and storing them. In the very beginning, I would just take screenshots of Facebook posts that people made. As we got more and more advanced, we actually have a full, we call it ring the bell, but ring the bell system where we're able to, inside of our Slack channels, take photos of client wins. We'll edit the photo to block out their last name and make it look clean and nice, make it mobile optimized, upload it to this form that goes inside of the wins channel. Our sales and marketing team get to use that. And then we also publish it to our website. Actually, if you go to scalingwithsystems.com/wins, you'll see over 1,100 wins that we've collected over the past couple of years from our clients. And so you can go back and see some of the, literally the early wins that we got for some of the first clients that we worked with. So it's irrefutable how much success that we've had with our clients. And so anytime someone's like, oh, I don't know if I'll get results with you and I don't know if you're legitimate or not, I'm like, you can't fake 4+ years of wins being posted, timestamp, date stamp, with different scenarios for every single client. You can't fake that. I mean, or it would be really hard to fake that. And so I was really happy that I created a system very early on to collect wins. And not only do you need to create a system to collect wins, you need a system to get the wins from your clients. And so, I talked a little bit earlier about less is more and client success team. So I'm not going to talk about making sure clients are getting wins. Let's assume they're already getting wins. But even clients are getting amazing results. What I've learned a lot of times is they're a little shy to actually share those results. So I'll give you a great example. Like sometimes our clients will have like a 12x return on their ad spend, or we just had one the other day that posted on our Wins channel that they generated 70 grand in the first 3 days of working with us using a cash play that we do. And so what we'll do is we know that they generated the 70 grand because they might have like offhand mentioned it on a one-on-one call. So then we'll go back inside of their Slack channel and we'll say something like, hey Bob, what were you telling me at the end of the call? You said that like you did something and you had made some kind of money. And then they'll go and they'll say, oh yeah, we deployed this campaign right here. In the first 3 days, we made $70,000, exclamation point. Boom. We just now have, in their own words, with their own messaging, them saying the testimonial, we can then screenshot that and upload that to our Wins channel. And we always respect our clients' privacy because we blur out their last names. And also, whenever they all become clients, we have what's known as a publicity and portfolio use clause where we can use their likeness and their social proof and their text as our marketing material. So everything's legal, everything's fine. The only people I've ever had be upset that I use our case studies or testimonials are people that came in, took our strategies, and then started teaching it to other people. That is literally, I've had it in 3,000 clients, almost 3,000. I have had it happen 3 times. And what happens is they come in, they see everything we're doing, they see how much money we're making, they go out and they teach the exact same thing, but they don't want anybody to know that they learned it from us. But the problem is that I'm smart. So I create a case study about their success on our website, and then anytime they type in that company's name into Google, because of my domain authority, because we've been creating content and been around for 5+ years, actually above their website, a lot of times will come Scaling with Systems case study for this client right here. So the only people that ever ask me to take those down are people that don't want to share the wins, and the people that don't want to share their wins is because they don't want to see that they had help along the way and that they learned those strategies, right? And the nice thing is I can tell those people to F off because I have a publicity and portfolio use clause that says that I can use this and they signed it and we have it stamped, right? So that's the benefit But anyway, I don't want to get down that rabbit hole, but that's the benefit of starting to collect wins and having those for years and years to come, is you literally have an unlimited amount of social proof that you know what you're talking about. And no matter what business or what you're doing, this is pretty much proving that thousands of people or hundreds of people or dozens of people trusted you to pay you money, which will help you with anything that you're trying to do. Really quickly, guys, before we go to operations, if you want me or my team's help installing these delivery playbooks inside your system, or the offers ones, or the marketing ones, or the sales ones, or even the operations I'm going to talk about here in a second, make sure you go down below, click the first link in the description, and book a call to speak with our team. Okay, the sixth and final pillar, operations, aka the absolute least sexy thing that you could ever do inside of your business, okay? Yet, once you hit a certain level inside your business, operations is the only thing that's gonna save you from having a high-paying job. In our company, our mission is to help you build a business that serves you instead of you serving it. It's on our website. Go to scalingsystems.com/careers. And one of the main ways that you can do that is through a really good operational framework or operational excellence. And unfortunately, like I talked about delivery, there's not a lot of people out there teaching people or helping people on how to build operations. And I even had clients of mine that are really great at operations trying to teach other people with it. And it's always very difficult to try to create funnels and advertise and market around, hey, we'll help you better at client success and operations, because everyone thinks that their biggest problem is marketing and sales. And so it's really expensive to try to educate them. Oh no, it's not marketing and sales, it's actually operations or fulfillment. And so sometimes those offers will struggle a little bit. So it's like nobody wants to hear it. So you might even think, oh, I don't care about operations, but please, please, please stay with me till the end, because this, I would say, is probably the most important thing if you actually want to build a business where you're free of it instead of it relying on you. So for me, I'm going to open this up with what I think everybody's goal should be for their business. Okay, I know that's a broad statement, but I think that this is the most powerful thing. At least for every entrepreneur I talk to, I know that if they achieve this, then they are at peak happiness, right? And it doesn't matter how much money that they're making. And that is to be able to run the entire business from your phone. Your entire business, not some of it, not a little bit of it, literally run your entire business from your phone. Because if you are able to do that, then you truly have an asset. Then you truly have something that can work without you. And more importantly, you truly have freedom. I know a lot of people that make hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. I know a lot of people that say that, oh, I have freedom and I can travel the world, blah, blah, blah. But they are literally glued to their laptop everywhere that they go. And I was one of those people. I used to be. I used to actually take vacations and I would work full time on those vacations. And I would say, oh, I love work, which I do, but I don't like being on my phone. I want to be able to be at the beach or at the pool, or I want to be able to, last night I was at dinner by myself. I had I do that every once in a while. And I was just on my phone answering Slack messages, and I was using my operational systems in order to make money and to be free of it while I'm sitting down having a delicious sushi meal, right? And so I actually first heard this concept from Naval Ravikant. I actually talked about it in my last video. If you haven't heard of him, I recommend you check him out. But he talked about on a podcast recently that he tries to run his entire life from his phone. And I realized, like, wow, if I was able to do that, if I could literally be anywhere at any time, if I could just say yes to anything that I want to do, if I could take my boat out randomly on a Tuesday, if we could randomly say yes to going to Mykonos with our friends in 7 days, something like that, and because all I needed was just my phone, then I knew that I would have the ultimate business. I would be as happy as I could possibly be, because let's be honest, we're never going to get rid of our phones. We're always going to have them at all times. But it would be nice not to be drawn into my laptop all the time, because I know once I open my laptop, I could be inside of there for 6, 7, 8 hours. And I know that there's a lot of things that you can't do from your phone, right? And so if you're able to run your business from your phone, it means that you have really good systems and people in place to be able to run the business. So the first thing that I'll say that I wish I knew way sooner is that I think that that should be the ultimate goal. Now, I talked in my first video about creating a life manifesto and deciding what you want before you even start the business, what the outcome is. And so maybe you like sitting in front of the computer and coding or whatever else it is, so maybe keep on doing that. But I would just say that for every single one of my clients or their friends or anybody I work with, I know that they want their ultimate goal to just be that all they have to do is sit on their phone and they can hop on a Zoom meeting with their leadership team once a week, something like that. And that's the dream state for them. I know. Okay, Ravi, that sounds great. Run your business from your phone. I'm not even making $5,000 a month. Like, well, why do I even care about that right now? Well, let's talk about how do you build a business along the way so that you ultimately can run the business from your phone. So the second thing that I wish that I knew from the very beginning, I'm actually going to steal from Tim Ferriss, but it's eliminate, automate, delegate. This is something that he wrote in his book. Oh, I don't even know how long it's been. Maybe it's 15 years, 20 years since he published the 4-Hour Work Week. That still it is a first principle. It still holds true today. And the idea behind it is that whenever you're presented with tasks inside of your business, you first always seek to eliminate the task. Do I even need to do this thing in the first place? Then you try to automate it or use AI, and only after you try those things do you delegate the rest, okay? The problem is that most people, they just try to delegate, right? I think a lot of times people think that, when I hear people talking about on podcasts, like they're like, oh, tell them about you. Oh, I run a team of 100 or 200 people. They like try to use that as like a badge of honor a little bit. And whatever, all the power to them. I don't care. I'm just saying that I think a lot of times, having run a team of 40 people before, if I could make the same amount of money but run it with 20 people, I would absolutely do that. Because the more people you have, the more risk, liability, issues, headache, less profit, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of people just go delegate straight first, or they'll do automate and then delegate. But the problem here is that you're automating or delegating things that you shouldn't be doing in the first place. So I try to, as much as possible, be absolutely, unequivocally savage when it comes to eliminating things off of my plate or off my team's plate or off my calendar. Let me give you a few examples of things that I've eliminated in the past. I've eliminated positions. I've eliminated offers. I've eliminated funnels. I've eliminated meetings. I've eliminated vendors or merchants. I've eliminated software. You get the idea. So instead of building out all these systems and let's see any one of these things here, let's say that they give me an extra 1%, 2%, 3% burst or additional revenue or something by having them. But the amount of more leverage that I get by having more time back and less stress is way more than the 1 or 2 or 3% I get by having this additional low ticket offer random thing over here. So let's just eliminate it entirely. So you can ask it. Another really great example to show you how brutal I am with elimination. And actually my fiance knows this and her whole family knows this. There's like a running joke with her family right now because if we have something in the house and we haven't used that thing within 7 days, I give it away immediately. I throw it away immediately. Now, I think this is because I kind of grew up in a house where there was like hoarding going on and people kept things forever. So there's probably an issue that I have to deal with. But I think it served me very well. So like literally, I've even had a little bit of like arguments with my fiance, not real arguments, but she's like kept something in our closet for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And I'm like, baby, like, do you need this? Do you need this? Do you need this? And she's like, yes, I need it. And then I'll be honest with you, what I'll do a lot of the times is I will move it out of the closets and I will put it somewhere else and I'll hide it. And then we have a rule that if she doesn't mention or say anything for 30 days after that, I can just throw it away at that point. Because obviously you think that you need something, but it's not until you don't have access to it anymore and you never use it for 30 days that you realize, oh, I actually never really needed that thing in the first place, right? And so, your mileage may vary. I'm not trying to get anybody divorced over here, but I am saying that that's how serious I am about elimination. Any chance I can to get rid of stuff out of my life, I try to have as much simplicity as possible. Now, I'm not a monk, okay? I still have a lot of things. I've just bought a second house. I have a boat. I used to have a plane. I have multiple cars, multiple motorcycles, Vespas. But I'd rather make the space for the things that actually bring me joy instead of, like I said, those things that gave me, let's say 1% happiness, 2% happiness, or 1% revenue, 2% revenue, et cetera, et cetera. So the point is, there are things that are really obvious in your life, either personal or professional, that you definitely, absolutely should be eliminating. And a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll eliminate something one time, and they'll say, okay, great, I've done, they do the spring cleaning for their closet or something like that, and they're done. But what you really need to is you need to get into a lifestyle of elimination, okay? You need to make it so that you're almost like where I am, where you're obsessed with it, okay? And maybe don't become me, but the point being that instead of doing it randomly or sporadically or what is known as reactively, where it's like, oh, I'm feeling stressed out, so let me try to trim things up, you want to be proactive about it. Another really great thing that I eliminate all the time is calendar space. And what I do is I pretty much audit my time every single week and I figure out what are the things that I don't like doing inside my business anymore. I actually had a really serious talk with my leadership team about 2 weeks ago as we're ending Q2 here. And I just was like, guys, look, I've been doing this for 5 years. I've made enough money now where I technically don't have to work again for the rest of my life at my current lifestyle. And so I just don't want to be doing the things that I no longer want to be doing. And I don't want to be working with the clients that I no longer want to be working with. And I don't want to be working with these employees that I no longer want to be working with. And I've just been putting up with it for the past couple of years because I wanted to make enough money, blah, 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 whatever the reason is behind it. And I literally just told them sobering fact. I had a list. I pulled up a Google document. I said, I don't want to do this anymore. 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 So we need to talk about, do we eliminate it? Do we automate it or do we delegate it, right? And so for 80% of those things, we just eliminated it. They were like, oh, like, it's not like these things really make a difference anyway. I just thought that you like doing them. Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, well, I wish I had done this way sooner. So I'm being very proactive. I'm just like, what is the life that I want to live? Because I know that if I can wake up every single day and it is as close to my perfect day as humanly possible, then I will be able to run this business forever. If I wake up every single day and it feels like a slog, I hate it, I don't look forward to Monday morning or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, whatever it is, then I know that I'm eventually going to burn out and I'm going to have to end the business, right? So I always seek to eliminate first. The next is going to be automate. Now, back when Tim Ferriss first wrote 4 Hour Work Week, the automate part of things was really mostly around like, it's called if this then that software, like Zapier or Make or Integromat, where you say, if this happens, then this happens. So, I'll give you a really great example. If somebody books a call on your calendar, then you send them an email reminding them. If somebody books a call on your calendar, then it gets sent to a Slack channel with their information. That's an if this then that software. Well, what's happening now is automate. It's not just that simple automation. Now you're talking about using real AI in what you do. So I'll give you another great example. I think I've talked about this before, but I have a portfolio company, and as of right now, we don't have a sales director, but we're doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month with one salesperson. And so I am the sales director in that company. And so I have to give feedback to the salesperson that we have. And the funniest part about it is that I have never done any sales training in my entire life. I don't even consider myself to be really great at sales. But you know who is really good at sales? ChatGPT. And so what I've done is I now have a system in place that whenever they finish a sales call, it downloads a transcript for that sales call, uploads it into a custom ChatGPT prompt that looks for these specific things and follows the same format. And then whenever that sales call recording gets zapped into the Slack channel, we also have an AI prompt inside of there that then feeds out what are 1 or 2 things, how would we rate this call on a scale of 1 to 10? What are 1 or 2 things that we would adjust? And then the salesperson can respond back, this is what I would do differently next time. So essentially, the salesperson is being trained by AI and I'm not involved in the process whatsoever. And it doesn't cost me a dime, right? And then maybe once a week, I'll do a little bit more of a deeper dive inside of it. But this way, they're getting feedback every single sales call as soon as the sales call is over versus waiting on me. And guess what? I hate doing sales call reviews, but I knew that it needed to happen. And so I can't automate it because you definitely have to review sales calls for your sales team if you want to be able to have them keep a consistent close rate. And I didn't want to delegate it because I was the only person in the company that could do it at that point because we only have 3 people in the entire company. And so I said, well, then how can I automate this, right? Or how can I at least automate a part of it? And that's why I came up with that idea of just having the ChatGPT do it for me at absolutely no cost, right? So automation is a huge part of it. Anything you can eliminate, you can try to automate. And just to be clear, what a lot of people think is it's an either or. So either you delegate it or you automate it. But a lot of times what's happening is, I'm going to draw 2 different examples here. So in this example here, I am essentially, let's say I'm reviewing all the sales calls myself. So I'm delegating this to myself in this example to do all of the sales call recordings. But in this example over here, I've automated, let's say 90% of it. And now instead of doing 5 or 7 sales calls, reviews a week, I'm doing 1 or 1 every 2 weeks. And so now I'm automating 90% of it and I'm delegating out the last 10% of it, okay? So it's not an either or. You can it's almost every single thing that you're doing right now, you could add automation to it. I'll give you another great example of something that we automated. So we used to pay what was called a sales team coordinator inside of our company $4,000 a month. What that person would do would essentially look at the sales calls on the calendar, make sure that they're going to the right person, make sure that they've confirmed their call, and review their application and call them or reach out if there's any additional information that we need before the call. Well, I was like, okay, I feel like we could definitely automate this. We can't eliminate it because we need to make sure that we're putting the best calls, the best salespeople. We need to make sure we're not getting on the phone with people that are, tire kickers, blah, blah, blah. So let's try to automate it. And so what we started doing is I created that scorecard system where I said, okay, if they have these characteristics, they're a 1, let's cancel them. They're a 2 if they have this, 3, 4, blah, blah, blah. And so now what happens is somebody books a call, immediately it goes inside of this AI, ChatGPT prompt, it reviews what their script is, and then it will determine what score this person is. And then let's say they're a 4, it can automatically turn that person's calendar event green on the calendar so that the entire sales team knows this is a 4, we need to keep this person on here and we're probably gonna close this deal. Also, if they're, let's say, a 2 and we need to collect more information, it can actually mark them as a 2, let the salesperson know, and then send an email out on behalf of the salesperson saying, hey, I saw that you put this in your answer here. That wasn't sufficient enough. Could you go a little bit more in detail so I can make sure I'm prepared for the call? All totally automated, right? All happening on its own. So, I'm a big automation nerd. My entire house is automated. Almost my entire life is automated. So I'm not going to go too deep inside of all the other things that you can do. But the point being that look to automate as much as humanly possible. And then only at that point do you focus on delegation. Only after everything is done do you focus on delegation. And so you might be asking me, Ravi, how do I know that that I have a really optimized team, that I have enough team members? Well, what I like to see is it's called revenue per employee or dollar per employee. And it's essentially how much money do you make a year? So let's say you make $1 million a year. And you divide that number by how many employees you have. So let's say that you have 10 employees. So that means your dollar per employee would be $100,000, okay? And so if you're paying an employee $90,000 a year, then you can already figure out that if you have 10 employees, you're paying them $90,000 a year, then you're only profiting $100,000 at the end of the year, right? So dollar per employee is a really good operational KPI to look at to see how efficient your organization is at making money. The highest dollar per employee, I think, company, or at least it used to be before AI really exploded, was JP Morgan and Chase, because banks have unbelievable profit margins. I would say that coaching, consulting, information offers probably have, if they do it correctly, probably have some of the highest dollar per employees because it's an information thing. You don't have to spend a lot of money or time or people on fulfillment. So I know really great businesses that have $1 million to $2 million per employee number. That's a real thing, right? There are hedge funds out there that have 11 employees and do hundreds of millions of dollars a year in carry. So don't have this like, oh, I have to have this big team because other people have big teams. You want to figure out how do I have the fewest people possible, make the most amount of money possible, aka have the highest dollar per employee possible. Now, I think we'll talk a little bit here in a second about finding employees, but the point of it being that when it comes to delegation, 10 times out of 10, beyond a shadow of a doubt, and I even see this with my portfolio companies that I have equity in, we hire employees to help out the founder, but the founder still has a hard time delegating stuff out there. Even, I'll give you another example. My fiance, we recently hired her a personal assistant because she was drowning in the amount of stuff that she had to do in our lives because she was handling the new house that we're getting and also her business and a bunch of stuff. So we hired her a personal assistant. And anytime, like yesterday, I was like, hey, baby, I think we should change these flights around a little bit so that we can leave from here instead of here, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, okay, let me try to do some research on it and I'll call Delta and I'll figure it out. And I'm like, what? Why would you call Delta? Like we're paying this assistant this amount of money every single month. It is their job to call Delta. And maybe if they need you, they'll call Delta, they'll wait on hold for 10 minutes, they'll explain the entire thing, they'll call you, get you connected in for 2 seconds, you give authorization, and then you hang up and the person finishes it, right? But what happens is majority of us don't have a muscle that we've been training on delegation. The majority of us, we simply do the exact same thing we've done since day one, which is put it all on our back, right? For one of whatever reasons, we're not going to get into your subconscious mind or your limiting beliefs or your trauma that you were raised up in. The point being that the majority of people will always try to do it themselves instead of delegate. So what's the solution to that, Ravi? Well, I think it's to be absolutely extreme with your delegation. Absolutely extreme. Because if you're just kind of delegating out a little bit of stuff, then I always find that you revert back to just doing it yourself, okay? So I'm at the point now where I actually have in my life manifesto, something I talked about in my previous video, I have something that I never do anything that can be delegated to somebody else. And I read that to myself every single morning. I never do anything that can be delegated to somebody else because I want to be that extreme with it because I know if I do that, then I know that I'm going to have the absolute amount of freedom in my life. I can actually run my business from my phone, et cetera, et cetera. And so anytime I am doing something, Like, I'll give you another great example. For one of my portfolio companies, we shot this webinar recently, and I was like, okay, I could just edit this webinar myself. There's a couple of ums and ahs I need to do. So like, it'll probably take me 20 minutes. Of course, it always takes longer than 20 minutes. You got to upload it, download it, blah, blah, blah. And so I was about to do it. I was like, you know what? No. Let me go get an editor from one of my other companies, our holding co, and let them edit this for me. And I know that seems like a silly example, but you all are doing the exact same thing. I guarantee it. Because if I'm doing it and I delegate everything out, I know that the majority of you guys are doing it as well. And so I find myself doing extreme delegation. So anytime, the biggest thing that I like to say to my team members is that I don't want any homework. So whenever I meet with any of my team members, when I get on a call with them, it's a huddle, I tell them the same thing. I don't want any homework. So if I don't want any homework, then one of three things need to happen. We either eliminate the thing that you're talking about, we figure out how to automate it and somebody else automates it, or you do it, or somebody on your team does it, or we hire somebody to do it, okay? But I tell them I don't want any homework myself, right? And that's been a really great little saying that my whole team knows now, because man, I've never felt more free in my entire life. So let's talk about something that would be really hard to delegate out. Creating this YouTube content. This would be really, really hard to delegate out. The nice thing is it also makes me a lot of money, and I also really enjoy doing it, right? So I tell my team I don't want to delegate. And to drive this point home further, what'll happen is you start to build, let's say in the very beginning, it's just you. Then you start hiring team members, I'll just put people's names right here. You start hiring people to do some of the stuff for you. But then they start hiring people below them to do some of the things for them. And so what happens is I tell them, hey, I don't want to do any work, so I don't want any homework, so you need to do it. And then they go, Ravi, I can't do it, and it needs to get done. I don't have capacity. And I say, well, dude, you need to learn to delegate to the people underneath you as well. And so I actually train my leadership team on how they need to be delegating to people below them, or when to recognize that they're hitting capacity and we need to hire somebody, or do they need to go in and eliminate or automate some of the stuff that their team's doing. A lot of times, even on my support and billing role recently, he asked to hire a new employee, my head of support and billing. And I said, let's do an audit of what your current people are doing. And we went back, and because we've had some of those team members for 4 or 5 years, they were doing things that we didn't even know that they were doing that stopped being relevant 2 years ago. And they were still doing it every single day, but because they were a VA, we didn't really care that much about it. So I said, okay, eliminate all this stuff first, and then if you still need to hire somebody, then we'll hire them. And another great example is the same person that asked to hire a new person, when I went back and said, hey, let's clean this all up, we ended up being able to let go one of our current support and billing agents because we didn't need that many. So because once we identified that we didn't have all this tasks and it could really be done by one person. So instead of hiring and going to a team of 3 people, we actually went from 2 people back to 1 person. So that's the power of making sure that you're eliminating and automating before you delegate. And then once you do decide to start delegating, you need to enable your team to be able to do the same thing. The third part about operations I wish that I knew way sooner was to create a recruitment funnel. And a recruitment funnel is the exact same thing of what you have at the front end of your business to attract clients, but it's to attract employees or to attract talents. This is something I wish I knew earlier on, because in the very beginning, like I said, you're so focused on marketing and sales, and you're so focused on doing everything that yourself, that you never really think, oh, I need to hire really great employees, until you need to hire really great employees. And then because you haven't had a recruitment funnel, you either A, don't grow your business because you can't scale, because you don't even have the time to fulfill your current obligations, let alone take time out to go and hire somebody else, or you have a little bit of time free, so you go and take time out to hire somebody else, but the problem is that you don't spend enough time on it, so then you hire somebody that's really crappy, you start to delegate stuff to them, they end up being a terrible person and bad at their job, so then all this stuff that you put on them, and then you took on more responsibility yourself, now the whole business is kind of imploding a little bit, right? So it's a really important thing, not something for you to scoff at. And a recruitment funnel is just where you're building a system so that you have continuous new talents coming into your company, applying for positions, so that way anytime you need to hire for that position, you have it ready to go, right? And the way that our recruitment funnel looks is we have traffic. We have traffic. We have a application/sales letter. And then we have an interview process. And then we have offer potential and offer made. I'll break it down really quickly. Traffic is going to be where you're getting eyeballs. So you should be telling people in the footer of your emails, in your social media contents, wherever else it is, even in ads we've run before, that you are hiring, okay? Then once you get eyeballs and the people know you're hiring, you should send them to an application. Let's talk about some positions you're always going to eventually hire for. More salespeople, more appointment setters, more client success managers, more support and billing agents. These are people you're going to hire nonstop. They're going to churn out whatever else it is. So then you fill out a really detailed job description with an application on it. Then that will go through what's known as an ATS, an application tracking system. We built ours inside of Asana. It's very simple. We help our clients do the same thing. Then you have an interview process, 1, 2, 3 interviews. The first interview test for skills, the second interview test for values or culture fit, and the third interview can be a direct interview with the CEO, not for you to interview the prospect, but for the CEO to cast a vision to the prospect so they're excited to work for you. Then you move them to an offer potential stage, meaning that they fit everything in this for this role perfectly, but we don't have a position for them right now. And then eventually when you make a hire, you can look at your offer potential stage and you can make offers to those people. A really great example of this is anytime we hire a salesperson, we always have 2 to 3 additional salespeople in this offer potential stage in case that one salesperson doesn't work out. So instead of having to keep a bad salesperson because I just couldn't imagine going through that process again, and instead of that salesperson getting comfortable, they know that if they're not performing, we could easily replace them in 1 second with somebody else behind them. That's the offer potential stage. So building a recruitment funnel and having like some kind of system or time set aside once a month even to just move some of those people through that pipeline and to keep that thing clean, it can have a huge impact on your business as you scale. Another key part about operations that I wish I knew sooner was a better tracking of my finances. And more specifically, I wish I had done budgeting better. Now, let me be really clear. Other than like maybe 1 or 2 months in the past 5 years of my business, I've always been profitable in my business. I'm really fortunate to say that. I know a lot of people that's not the case. So every month has been profitable, maybe other than like a handful of months. And so without even really good financing or budgeting, actually, it's really funny. The company that I used to use for bookkeeping was so terrible. You know what? I'm going to call them out. Bench. I used to use Bench for bookkeeping. They were so god awful and terrible. But because I just never even used it or didn't even care that much, I didn't really ever look at the books. I didn't really want to spend the time to go out and try to find a new bookkeeper because that wasn't the critical constraint of my business at the time. And one day I literally get an email. And this is a huge company. They emailed everybody and said, hey, as of like today, Bench is no longer around. We're shutting down. We hit bankruptcy. We're terrible people. By the way, this is my opinion, Bench. Don't come sue me after this, okay? Your mileage may vary. And then literally the next day I get an email that says that, oh yeah, by the way, just kidding, somebody just bought Bench from us, and so now you're gonna go work with them now, which I was like, wow, you just destroyed that transition. And I immediately found another bookkeeper and we started working with them. Anyway, the point of all of that is that I didn't really look at my finances too much other than the end of the year whenever we had to do taxes. But what I learned as I started to scale was that my methodology was like, let's try to not spend as much any money. Let's try to spend as little money as possible and try to make as much money as possible. The problem was that it didn't really work well whenever my marketing team was like, hey, what's our ad spend budget this month? Or the client success team was like, hey, we need to hire a campaign manager. What is the budget for that? Or, hey, we're coming up on hiring a new client success manager. Or do we have that in the payroll to do that? Or whenever people wanted to talk about compensation plans or anything like that, I was just like, oh no, like let's not talk about it because I didn't have an eye on my finances. Also, I would get really emotional in my business. Like I would think, oh my God, we're not closing enough deals. We're not making enough money. I'm not going to make any money. And then I look at it like at the end of the year, I'm like, oh wow, this was a good year for us, right? But in the moment, I'm like stressing out every single day. So I wish I had earlier on paid closer attention to my finances and created a budgeting plan for every single department. So what I do now is I do 2 things. So the first thing is I have my own Google Sheets. Now, this is pretty funny because at a company our size to use Google Sheets, you might be like, that doesn't make any sense. But I like Google Sheets because instead of relying on a bookkeeper and maybe the errors that they're making, and by the way, they might be categorizing something as a business transaction when maybe it's not, blah, blah, blah. I have my own Google Sheet that I give my clients that I look at every single month that lets us know how much money we made, total cash collected, and then it breaks down the expenses underneath operating expenses by certain things, like let's say payroll and marketing, and then it could be like operations, like software, stuff like that. And I also get to see my taxes there as well, how much money I need to set aside for taxes in that same sheet. So every single month I put in a separate account a specific amount of money that's just my tax account. So I never have to worry at the end of the year, oh my God, do I have money to pay taxes? So I created a Google Sheet that lets me know that lets me know exactly how we're doing month to month. And in that Google Sheet, I also have budgeting. So I say, let me give you a great example. I want my sales to be maximum 12% of my top line revenue. I want my client success to be maximum 9% of my top line revenue. I want marketing and media to be maximum 3% of my top line revenue. So this is now creating budgeting so that I can say, okay, I can run my business, let's say 65% margins, because I know that I have to spend this percentage on ad spend, this percentage on team, this percentage on this, that. And so could we be above it? Could I be at 75, 80% margins? Absolutely. But I know that I'm willing to go down to 65% and still have a really healthy business versus not wanting to hire anybody, not wanting to give any raises, or just avoiding the subjects altogether. And so I started budgeting what I want each department to be. And so then I can come to my directors of those departments and I can say, hey, you are in charge of this department. This is your budget every single month. It's a percentage of the revenue. And so you can hire the people that you want to. And if we have a surplus, fantastic. That'll go back into the company's coffers, right? So that's been very powerful. And then the second thing that happens with my finances, I did obviously also hire a bookkeeper, which was a big part of me having clean books by the end of the year. But I think for a lot of you watching this, you don't need a bookkeeper, if I'm being honest with you. I'm not a financial advisor. You can go seek financial advice from a professional. But I think a lot of people overcomplicate things. And if you can just look inside of your bank account and see how much money that you made that month and then deduct the expenses, you can at least keep a running tab of what your profit is month over month. And one of the best things that ever did for me is it also helps me keep an eye on every single transaction that's coming in and out of my bank account, my credit card. So I can just make sure, oh, do we still need to be paying this vendor, this software, this thing, this month, second month, third month, fourth month? You know what, let's try to remove it, almost like I talked about earlier, this elimination. What I'll do, I've done this before, I'll ask a team member, hey, do you need this software? And they go, oh yeah, we use it all the time. And I'll look and I'll see the last activity sign-in was 2 months ago. And so I say, okay. And then I'll literally just cancel the software. And then that person never says anything to me ever again. And I know that they think that they use it all the time, but really nobody's using it all the time. And so the company doesn't have to pay for it anymore. The final piece I'll give you on operations, what I wish I knew way sooner, was something that what I learned from my first director of operations. And he calls it one throat to choke. And now this is something that we use. I don't know if choke's C-H-O-K-E, C-H-O-A-K. I honestly don't know. I think it's C-H-O-K-E. We now use it inside of our organization for every single thing that we do. And one throat to choke essentially means that whatever you're talking about, this task, this problem, this KPI, one person should be solely responsible for seeing the outcome of it. Because what I've noticed, as you start to scale and you hire employees and team members, unless you have one person who's solely in charge of it, you end up with that Spider-Man meme where this person's pointing to this person is pointing to this person is pointing back to you, right? And everyone's kind of like this a little bit, or this, I forget the meme. And that's not really fun whenever you're dealing with big issues like show-up rates or close rates or booked calls or a customer complaint, anything like that. So you essentially need to create one throat to choke for almost everything inside your organization. So great examples of one throat to choke are KPIs. So we will not start measuring a KPI until we can say that this is the person that's responsible for that KPI. So I'll give you a great example, close rate. So close rate is the responsibility of the salesperson, but ultimately the one throat to choke is actually the sales director. Because close rate could be a function of also what's marketing doing as well, and the sales director speaks to the marketing team, and so he might need to transition, talk to the marketing department to figure out what needs to adjust in the marketing messaging or something like that, so we can get our close rate back up again. So KPIs is absolutely critical. Tasks is another really important one as well. So, we'll have a call with our leadership team and we'll be talking about something for a while and they'll be like, okay, yeah, let me look into it. Bob and I will meet up and then we'll get back to you. Okay, great, looking forward to it. Just so I'm clear, who is the one throat to choke here so that if it doesn't come back in 7 days, I can ask them what's going on, right? And then they're like, and then they have to decide right then and there who's gonna be in charge of that thing, because I don't wanna message them both in 7 days and then one person says, no, that person was available, and the other person, no, I sent you a message, and everybody's just pointing at each other, and I end up being the loser because I don't have the outcome that I wanna have. So one throat to choke is also really critical for tasks, and then obviously the other big one is problems. So, if something's going on, your book calls are down, your client satisfaction is down, something like that, when someone says, yeah, we'll look into it, our department will look into it, I should be like, okay, just to be clear, am I expecting a response from you specifically, or who in your department is going to be in charge of reviewing the data and finding the key stakeholders? And to be clear, this doesn't mean that they're the only person that's working on this project. It just means, or working on this problem, it just means that they're the one that's leading it, that's gathering all the information, and that's going to present that to me or whoever else needs to be presented to whenever it comes time to be presented. There you have it, how I build my consulting business again. If you want my help installing any of these playbooks inside of your business, make sure to go down below and book a call to speak with our team. And if you have any questions, be sure to comment down below and I'll be sure to personally respond. See you guys in the next one.